He overheard me talking about our child's real dad. I didn't know he was listening. I never thought I'd get into such a complicated mess with my husband and my baby daddy, which aren't the same person. It's crazy how life can take a turn you never saw coming. 1 minute, you're just a girl living your life, figuring things out as you go, and the next, you're tangled in something so complicated, you wonder how the hell you got there. That's kind of how I felt when I first found out I was pregnant. I wasn't married then, not even close. I was with this guy, let's call him Jack. We weren't really serious, just two people having fun, no strings attached. But then, life happened, and I missed my period. At first, I thought it was nothing, but then weeks went by, and I started to feel different. I took a test, and there it was, positive. Jack wasn't the type to stick around. He was a good guy, but not the settling down type, you know? We talked, and he was honest with me. He wasn't ready to get married just because of an accidental pregnancy, and honestly, neither was I. But there was this tiny voice in the back of my head telling me that maybe, just maybe, I could do this. I could be a mom. I knew Jack wasn't going to be the best father to my kid. I couldn't blame him. When I told him I wanted to keep the baby, he said he'd help me financially with whatever our kid and I needed, but he couldn't promise being here. He traveled a lot because of work, and he loved it so much there couldn't be a better fit for the job. I made my peace with it, and let me tell you, I don't regret it even for a second. And that's what I did. I had my baby, a beautiful little boy named Noah. From the moment I held him, I knew I'd made the right choice. It wasn't easy, of course. Being a single mom is no walk in the park, but I made it work. I had a great support system, friends, family, people who loved Noah almost as much as I did. I was content. I had my little boy, and he was my world. I didn't really think about dating or meeting someone new. My life was full, and I didn't feel like anything was missing. But then, out of nowhere, I met Tom. I wasn't looking for anything when I met him. In fact, the idea of being in a relationship was the last thing on my mind. But life has a funny way of bringing people into your life when you least expect it. Tom was different from anyone I had ever been with. He was kind, patient, and he didn't run when he found out I had a kid. If anything, he embraced it. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue. I remember feeling so out of place, surrounded by all these couples. It was like a stark reminder of how different my life had become. But then there was Tom. He wasn't trying too hard, wasn't coming on strong. He was just there. We talked about everything and nothing. Work, life, music, movies. It was easy. I didn't expect to see him again after that night. But then he called. We went out for coffee, and before I knew it, one date turned into two, and two turned into a few months. The thing about Tom is that he made me feel like I didn't have to apologize for my life. I didn't have to explain why I was a single mom, or why things with Jack didn't work out. He just accepted it. When I finally introduced him to Noah, I was nervous as hell. It's one thing to date someone when you have a kid, but it's another thing entirely to bring that person into your child's life. But Tom was amazing. He didn't try to play dad or overstep. He just got to know Noah, and Noah adored him. We took things slow, but eventually it just felt right. Tom and I moved in together after having a relationship for 3 years, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could have it all: a family, a partner, and a future. But life isn't a fairy tale. There's always that thing lurking in the back of your mind, the thing you don't want to think about or deal with. For me, that was the reality of Noah's dad. Jack wasn't a part of our lives, but that didn't change the fact that he existed, and I never really talked to Tom about it. It wasn't that I was hiding it, but more like I didn't know how to bring it up. How do you tell the person you love that the father of your child is still out there somewhere? It's not like I was keeping secrets. I just wasn't sure how much Tom really wanted to know. Noah was ours, in every way that mattered. Noah was only 3 when they met, and we got married when he was 5. Tom was there for the scraped knees, the bedtime stories, the endless questions that only a little kid could come up with. He was the one who taught Noah to ride a bike, who held him when he cried. But the truth has a way of catching up to you, no matter how much you try to avoid it. I should have known better. And that's where it all started to unravel, When I let my guard down, thinking everything was perfect, not realizing that maybe Tom deserved to know the whole story. Or maybe, deep down, I was just too scared of what might happen if he did. Because one day when I thought I was alone, I was talking on the phone with a friend. We were chatting about life, about the past, about Jack. I didn't think much of it. It was just a casual conversation, reminiscing about the old days, and I didn't realize I was saying more than I should. But as I hung up, I turned around, and there was Tom, standing in the doorway. His face was pale, his eyes wide. He had heard everything, and that's when I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. I stared at Tom, frozen in place. His expression wasn't just shock, it was something deeper, something that sent a cold wave of fear through me. My heart pounded as I tried to piece together exactly what he might have heard, how much he knew. He took a step closer, and I could see his hands trembling. "So," he started, his voice barely above a whisper, "Jack's his dad?" I opened my mouth to speak, to explain, but the words got stuck in my throat. How could I possibly make this right? I hadn't meant for him to find out like this. Hell, I hadn't even planned on bringing Jack up at all. Tom and I had built this life together, and I didn't want anything to ruin it. But now, everything was hanging by a thread. "Why didn't you tell me?" Tom's voice was louder now, the hurt and betrayal creeping in around the edges. "Why didn't you just tell me the truth?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't know how, Tom. It was never something I planned to keep from you. I just didn't know how to bring it up." "You didn't know how to bring it up?" he repeated, disbelief coating every word. "We've been together for years, living together, raising Noah together, and you didn't think that maybe I deserved to know that his real dad is out there? I asked you many times, and you just lied." I felt a sting of guilt, sharper than anything I'd felt before. "I'm sorry," I said, and it felt so inadequate, so small in the face of what was happening. Jack wasn't supposed to be a part of our lives, and I guess I just convinced myself that it didn't matter, that you were Noah's dad in every way that counted. Tom's eyes were glassy, and I could see the pain etched into his face. "But it does matter. It matters because you didn't trust me enough to tell me. What else haven't you told me? What else are you hiding?" His words cut deep, and I felt the tears welling up in my eyes. I shook my head, desperate to make him understand. "There's nothing else, Tom. I swear there's nothing else. I love you. You're the only father Noah has ever known, and I didn't want to complicate that. I didn't want to complicate us." Tom ran his hand through his hair. His movement seemed anxious. "But it's already complicated, don't you see? You've been keeping this from me, and now I don't even know what to think." The silence between us was heavy, thick with all the things left unsaid. I wanted to reach out to him, to tell him that everything would be okay, but I wasn't sure that it would be. I wasn't sure that I hadn't just shattered something between us that could never be put back together. "Tom, please," I said softly. "We can work through this. We've been through so much already. This is something so insignificant."
No.
He looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the man I knew, the man I loved. But then it was gone, replaced by something else, doubt, uncertainty, maybe even resentment. "I need some time to think," he said, his voice flat, emotionless. "I don't know if I can just move past this, not without figuring out how I really feel about everything." "Of course," I said, my voice barely audible. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here and we'll figure it out together." Tom didn't respond. He just turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there alone, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on me like a ton of bricks. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands, replaying the conversation over and over in my mind. How could I have let this happen? How could I have been so careless? I thought I was protecting us, protecting our family, but now everything was unraveling and I didn't know how to stop it. The house felt too quiet, too empty. I could hear the faint sounds of Noah playing in his room upstairs, oblivious to the storm brewing below. The thought of him brought a fresh wave of guilt crashing over me. How was I going to explain this to him? How was I going to make sure he didn't get caught in the crossfire of my mistakes? I needed to talk to someone to figure out how to fix this. I reached for my phone, hesitating before dialing. Who could I even talk to about this? My best friend Emma had been there through everything, but even she didn't know the full story. She didn't know about Jack, or how complicated things had gotten. But she was my best friend, and if anyone could help me figure this out, it was her. I dialed her number, and she picked up on the second ring. "Hey, what's up?" "Emma, I messed up," I said, my voice trembling. "What happened?" she asked, with a concerned tone of voice. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Tom found out about Jack. He overheard me talking on the phone, and now I don't know what to do. He's so angry, and I think I might have just ruined everything." "Oh my God," Emma said, her voice softening. "I'm so sorry. That's a lot to deal with. What did you say to him?" I tried to explain, to tell him that Jack wasn't a part of our lives, that it didn't matter. But it didn't help. He feels betrayed, and now he's saying he needs time to think. Emma sighed. "I can't imagine how hard this must be for you, but listen, you've got to give him that time. Let him process everything. He loves you, and he loves Noah. But this is a huge shock for him, and it's going to take time for him to wrap his head around it." "I know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't want to lose him. I don't want Noah to lose him." "You won't," Emma said firmly, "but you've got to be honest with him about everything. No more secrets, no more half-truths. If you want to fix this, you've got to be open with him, completely." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "You're right. I just hope it's not too late." "It's not," Emma said, her voice full of confidence I wished I shared. "It's never too late to make things right." The days after Tom walked out of that room were a blur of anxiety and regret. I could barely sleep, my mind spinning with what I'd said, what I hadn't said, and all the things that had gone wrong. Every time I tried to talk to Tom, he brushed me off, saying he needed space. I gave it to him, but it was killing me inside. Finally, after nearly a week of living in this unbearable tension, Tom came home late one night. Noah was already in bed, and I was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV without really watching it. I heard the door creak open, and then Tom's footsteps as he walked in, setting his keys down on the kitchen counter. He didn't say anything, just grabbed a beer from the fridge and leaned against the counter, staring at me across the room. His silence was louder than anything he could have said, and the dread in my chest grew with every second that passed. "Tom," I started, but he held up his hand to stop me. "We need to talk," he said, his voice cold, detached. I nodded, feeling the lump in my throat getting bigger. "Okay," I whispered, my hands shaking as I set the remote down and turned to face him fully. He took a long swig from the bottle, his eyes never leaving mine. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about what you said, and about what you didn't say, and I've come to a decision." The way he said it, so final, sent a chill down my spine. I opened my mouth to speak, but he cut me off again. "Don't," he snapped. "Just don't. I'm tired of the excuses, tired of the lies. You lied to me, and not just by omission. You've been lying to me for years, making me think we had something real, when all the while you were hiding the truth from me." "Tom, it wasn't like that," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "I didn't lie to you. I just didn't know how to tell you." "That's bullshit," he yelled, slamming the bottle down on the counter so hard I thought it might shatter. "You had plenty of chances to tell me, but you didn't. You let me play the fool, raising another man's child, loving him like he was my own, while you kept me in the dark. You said you didn't even know if he was alive. You thought he probably wasn't because of his lifestyle. Is he even all that you said he was or is?" His words were like knives, each one cutting deeper than the last. I felt my face flush with shame, the tears welling up in my eyes. "Tom, I'm sorry. I should have told you. I know that now. But Noah is your son in every way that matters. You've been there for him, you've loved him, and he loves you. That's all that should matter." Tom laughed, but there was no humor in it, only bitterness. "You think that's all that matters? What about trust? What about honesty? You took that from me, and now you expect me to just forget about it?" I shook my head, the tears spilling over now. "No, I don't expect you to forget. I just want you to understand that I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared, Tom. I didn't want to lose you." "Well, congratulations," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You've done a great job of that." The room was spinning, my thoughts racing. I couldn't believe this was happening, couldn't believe how quickly everything was falling apart. "Tom, please," I begged, standing up and taking a step toward him. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can talk about everything, work through it together. I love you, and I know you love me. We can't just throw all of that away." But Tom shook his head, his expression hard. "Love isn't enough, not when there's no trust. You've shown me that I can't trust you, and without that, there's nothing left." He turned away from me, his shoulders slumped, and for a moment I thought he might soften, might reconsider. But then he spoke again, and the coldness in his voice made it clear that there was no going back. "I've made up my mind," he said, his back still to me. "I want you out by the end of the week. I'll stay at a friend's place until then, so you have time to pack." His words hit me like a sledgehammer, knocking the wind out of me. "You're kicking me out?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tom turned to face me again, his eyes hard. "What did you expect? That we'd just carry on like nothing happened? You lied to me, you humiliated me, and now you think I'm going to let you stay here, in our home, after everything you've done?" The humiliation in his words stung worse than anything else. I felt like I was drowning, struggling to find something, anything that could keep me afloat. But there was nothing. Tom was done, and there was nothing I could say to change his mind. I nodded, my heart breaking with every word. "Okay," I said, my voice hollow. "I'll go get Noah." Tom didn't respond. He just turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, alone with the weight of what I'd lost. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the house, and then there was silence. I sank back down onto the couch, burying my face in my hands as the sobs finally broke free. I had lost everything, my family, my home, the man I loved. And the worst part was, I had no one to blame but myself. As I sat there drowning in my own grief, I realized that this was the end of everything I'd known, everything I'd fought so hard to build. Tom was gone, and with him, the life we'd built together. And now, all I could do was pick up the pieces and figure out how to move on. Update. It's been a few weeks since everything fell apart, and I'm finally finding the strength to update you all on what's happened since that awful night. First, I want to thank everyone who reached out with advice and support. It meant more than you could ever know. Now that I've had some time to process everything, I feel like I owe it to you to share what's been going on. After Tom told me to leave, I packed up as much as I could in those first few days and moved into a small apartment across town. It's not much, just a 2-bedroom place that's a far cry from the home I shared with Tom, but it's something. I had to do a lot of soul searching to even get to this point, to try and wrap my head around how everything fell apart so quickly. The first few days were the hardest. I didn't know how to explain to Noah why we weren't going back to our old house. He's too young to understand the details, and I wasn't sure what Tom was telling him when they were together. But I did my best. I told him that sometimes grown-ups need time apart to figure things out, but that both Mommy and Daddy still love him very much. He seemed to accept that for now, but I know there are more questions coming, questions I'm not sure how to answer. As for Tom, I haven't heard much from him. He moved back into our house after I left, and we've been communicating through brief, strained text messages about Noah. It's all very businesslike, which is probably for the best, but it still hurts. Every message feels like a reminder of how much I've lost. I've been trying to keep myself busy, to distract myself from the emptiness I feel inside. I've thrown myself into work, taking on extra shifts and projects to keep my mind off things. But when the day ends and I'm alone in that tiny apartment, reality sets in, and it's like the walls are closing in on me. I know a lot of you warned me that Tom might not come back from this, that once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. I guess I didn't want to believe it. I kept hoping that time and space would help him see that I never meant to hurt him, that we could work through this and come out stronger on the other side. But as the days have turned into weeks, it's becoming clear that Tom isn't interested in repairing what's broken. The last straw came a few days ago when Tom served me with divorce papers. I can't say I was surprised, But seeing it in black and white, knowing that this was really the end, was like a punch to the gut. I signed them because I knew there was no point in fighting it. Tom had made up his mind, and there was no going back. What really shattered me, though, was the custody arrangement. Tom's pushing for joint custody, which I know is the fair thing, but it feels like one more piece of my life slipping through my fingers. The thought of not having Noah with me every day is unbearable, but I know I have to be strong for him. I have to do what's best for him, even if it means sharing time with the man who broke my heart. There's also the issue of the house. Tom's keeping it, and I'm not going to fight him on that either. It's too full of memories, good and bad, for me to stay there even if I could. But letting go of that place, of the life I built there, is harder than I imagined. Every time I drive by, I feel a load of loss on my shoulders, like I'm mourning a version of my life that's gone forever. I've been trying to lean on my friends and family, but it's hard. They're supportive, of course, but I can see the pity in their eyes, and it makes me feel even worse. I know they're thinking I brought this on myself, that I should have been honest from the start, and they're not wrong. But that doesn't make it any easier to swallow. The one bright spot in all of this has been Noah. He's the reason I get out of bed in the morning, the reason I keep going when everything else feels hopeless. He's resilient, stronger than I ever gave him credit for. He's adjusting to the new routine, though I can tell he misses the way things were. He asks about Tom a lot, and I do my best to reassure him that he'll always have both of us, even if we're not together. There have been moments, late at night when I'm lying in bed, that I've been tempted to reach out to Tom, to beg him to reconsider, to try and fix things. But I know that wouldn't do any good. The damage is done, and the only thing left to do is move forward. I'm trying to take it one day at a time, to focus on the future instead of drowning in the past. It's not easy, but I'm starting to realize that maybe this is an opportunity for a fresh start, a chance to rebuild my life on my own terms. It's terrifying, and I'm still not sure I'm ready, but what choice do I have? For now, I'm going to focus on being the best mom I can be for Noah. He deserves stability, love, and happiness, and I'm determined to give that to him no matter what. As for me, I don't know what the future holds, but I'm trying to be hopeful. Maybe one day I'll be able to look back on all of this and see it as a turning point, a moment when I found the strength to start over. But right now, I'm just taking it one step at a time, trying to find my way through the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, there's light at the end of the tunnel.